All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today we have gathered Murrah and Jan, the Slovak Muslim, for a quick reaction video. It's not going to take a long time. We're just going to watch the interaction. We're going to, excuse me, I have to mute down the volume from the YouTube channel because otherwise there's going to be an echo. We're going to do a quick reaction video on the interaction between Piers Morgan and Mohammed Hijab. Maybe some of you have seen it already. The interesting part here is that, as you might have seen, is that Piers Morgan has quite a big reach in the Western world. And the interaction between him and Mohammed Hijab, I think, is one of the most viewed videos on his whole channel, which is quite interesting. But before we start, maybe just a really, really short introduction. I'm Murrah. My name is Emir. This is our brother Jan. We're both people living in Europe, Muslims. Both of us. Jan is from the Slovakia. Maybe just one or two sentences about you, Jan, from yourself, so people get to know you.
I'm a Slovak Muslim. I guess I'm the only one on YouTube by that name. So I've been revered for like 3 years almost, and you can find me if you type in Slovak Muslim. I'll pop up.
Very nice. All right. I would say just one more thing I wanted to mention. If you guys remember, there has been recently many Muslims in very huge podcasts, such as, for example, when Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, went on the PBD podcast. Now we have Mohammed Hijab, we have Bassem Youssef also at the Piers Morgan Show. There's an interesting thing I told friends and family. I always mentioned the moment the Muslims start to step into the mainstream, there's going to be a huge shift. There's going to be a huge shift because, in my opinion, the Muslim public figures that we have huge, not that they just have huge reach, but they have really good arguments and they're very articulate and very eloquent in their speeches. And I've seen it coming. Even the amount of views that we can reach here on the Piers Morgan Show and other podcasts, such as the PBD podcast. Let's just hop in. All right. You ready, Jan?
Let's do it.
By the way, if you need a break and if you want to say something, just tell me stop, and I'm just going to pause it for a second, okay?
Sure.
Let's go.
Emotional analysis made headlines around the world. 5 million people have watched that interview so far, a measure of the enormous emotion and division this conflict has awoken. Well, among those viewers was Mohammed Hijab, the controversial pro-Palestine influencer with nearly 1 million YouTube subscribers of his own. Here's what he had to say about it.
Do you think Piers Morgan, on fair grounds, would try and speak to me about an issue like this? Or Ben Shapiro, when they know what I'm going to come with? Absolutely not. Don't pretend you don't know who I am. You've been watching my videos. You know what I'm about. Your silence is deafening. And your cowardice is apparent.
Well, Mohammed Hijab joins me now. Mohammed, thank you very much for coming in. I hadn't actually watched your videos. I have now. I've watched a few of them. I'm aware you've got a massive following. You've got nearly 1 million YouTube subscribers. You're an influential person, and you have a lot to say about this issue, obviously. So I thank you for coming in, but I'm not too cowardly to talk to you. I don't have a horse in this race. I think I've tried to straddle a divide of being fair-minded with all sides. I've had all voices on the show.
I commend you for that, actually, to be honest, for bringing me on. But do realize I did caveat that with on fair ground. So let's hope that this interview is conducted.
I intend to be completely fair.
Yeah, sure.
I promise you, because all I want to get to here is a real sense of what is going to happen. We can all look back at. We can all look back. Let me just. We can all look back.
Before that, Piers. Yeah. Sorry, if you want to say fair grounds, you introduced me as a Palestinian controversial.
I actually corrected myself.
Right. So
I said pro-Palestinian. I meant to say pro-Palestinian.
So why did the word controversial come into play?
I think you're controversial.
So are you.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So is the ambassador. Why didn't you introduce her in that manner?
I'm happy to say that to many people, her views would be controversial.
So why didn't you introduce me as the Oxford graduate?
Do you want to be introduced as that?
Yes.
Okay. Or an Oxford graduate.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. The start is already really interesting. I think he was not prepared to get a jab like this early in the start. The way he introduced him, and then he just flat out told him like, because I think Mohammed Hijab, what he's doing here, this is a little bit of more of a psychological warfare, like what he's doing. What do you think, Jan?
I think like people maybe outside of the UK, they don't get this, like what's happening here. But to understand the UK debating culture, or like if you look at the parliament, they all shout at each other. Like it's not like a regular parliament you have, or the debate culture is very like aggressive. So for him to step in and just say, no, I'm going to take, like for me, for someone like here in this part of Europe, that would be considered rude. But in the UK, that's a standard practice. So maybe some people are like, why is he like cutting him off in the middle of sentence? Well, that's like they talk like this in the UK. Like even Piers will cut him off. This is like the UK style. So you have to understand when you're watching them, this is the UK style of debating. It's not typical for America. It's definitely not typical for other European countries. But this has been developed at Oxford and all these places. So they all cut each other off. And it's like a weird thing. But yeah, this is the style. So for me, yeah, it's good because like obviously the introduction, he's saying that he doesn't have a horse in the race, Piers, but I mean, if you look at his background, he does have a view, right? Like just the way he's going to ask the question, you can understand there are some foundations he's already accepting. So I think he is biased, but obviously he's going to say no. So excuse me.
No worries. That's what happens when you're live. Like there's nothing that you can censor there. But which is kind of interesting. So you think this is nothing to do with Mohammed Hijab's style in particular? It's just more of a UK style. That's the way they debate. I honestly, I'm not convinced because I've seen also a lot of debates in the UK. But I think Mohammed Hijab has also this thought in his back. In his mind to catch his opponent off guard, and this was a perfect opportunity and a perfect showcase of how to catch your opponent off guard, because he knows Piers' stance. Because as you've seen in the other video where Piers Morgan showed Mohammed Hijab, they know each other, or at least Mohammed Hijab knows Piers, so he knows his stance.
Exactly, like the Piers is aggressive as hell. Like you have to be the same, so I don't see any problem there. But I'm just saying, for some people, maybe there's an issue who don't know Piers, like who are watching this first time. They're like, they think he's like a regular TV host. Like that's not what he is. You have to understand, he is this type of debating, crying on TV guy. Like he's not unbiased on anything. But you have to understand this. Like I've been watching him for 10 years, so you know what's he like. But so just the perception might be. That's what I'm saying. But anyways, yeah. Because some Muslims are watching him for the first time. They don't know who's Piers Morgan. I know, but maybe they haven't seen him before. So they think it's like a TV, like 7 p.m. news reporter. That's not what he is.
That's
even this is called
true.
Uncensored. He's actually, like, to be honest, his show is not part of mainstream, even though it's owned by the Rupert Murdoch and all these mainstream TV news. But he's trying to portray himself as uncensored, sort of like a underground mainstream guy who's talking to all these people who no one will talk to. So, but still, it's a mainstream. Yeah, exactly. So it's like a false underground guy. Oh yeah,
a fake underground guy. By the way, a quick disclaimer for the viewers. What he mentioned is that before Mohammed Hijab came in, the Israeli ambassador of the UK was before him, and this is why he referred to the occasion where he said, like, you didn't introduce her as controversial. Yeah, that's it. All right, let's keep going.
No problem. You can be introduced as anything you like, frankly. It makes no difference to the debate. Let me ask you this. Where were you when you heard about what happened on October the 7th?
I was at home.
What was your reaction when you heard?
I was actually very sickened by it. And this is something I do want to put on the table because I think it's fair for people to know this. In our religion, we do not believe, okay, as a Muslim, I am a Muslim, and I do not believe in the killing of any man, woman, or children. Non-combatants. That is not despite the religious teachings. That is because of the religious teachings. So in terms of condemning Hamas and just jumping straight into it, I condemn not only Hamas, but any other entity, okay, wherein it's proven that this has been done, that the killing of combatants has been done. Therein, I condemn any party that does it. Any party that kills people or strikes at people where it's more probable than not that it will hit a civilian target, I condemn them. And that's why I condemn the IDF. Because when they strike, they know that it's more probably than not going to hit civilian target. They know that the majority of civilians or the majority of people that are going to be affected are civilians. We know that from the various operations that have been conducted. We know that because now in Gaza, you find that there is a blockade, as you know, for 17 years, but also they're stopping them from electricity, water, which is a war crime under Geneva 4 of the Geneva Convention, Protocol 4 of the Geneva Convention. So this is something I'm surprised you didn't actually mention to the ambassador. But
I did mention it.
You didn't say it's a war crime.
Well, I think it's an arguable point whether it's a war crime.
Okay, let me ask you now.
They are saying Israel, at the moment, Israel is adamant they are not breaching war crimes, right? It will be determined.
But if we could,
well, it will be determined whether that's the case.
No, sorry.
What is it?
That's
Mohammed,
incorrect.
Mohammed, let me make a point to you back on that. I think surely we can agree that what happened on October the 7th was a war crime. I mean, when people are taking grandmothers and executing them, kidnapping young children, when they're killing babies in their cribs, we can agree that's war crime, right?
Okay, babies.
Can we?
Surely, of course, 100%.
Just maybe look, like he doesn't want to answer this. Like Mohammed Hijab was really straight when it came to the question. As Muslims, even in war situations, I think every Muslim on this planet agrees that in a war you cannot kill children, elderly, or women. Like, why is it so hard to condemn these killings? Like, and Piers is just straight out trying to avoid this topic, like of the idea of killing all those innocent people.
Yeah, he also cut him off. If you look at what he did, like in the middle of sentence, Piers stepped in and he cut him off. And he asked, well, surely what's a war crime is October 7th. He switched it. You've seen that, right? So it's like a tactic he's using again. But yeah, I think I don't think because this condemning question is like obviously going to be asked for any Muslim. So, but I think he phrased it well, because like if you don't say it, it comes across like, well, you agree with like all these killings. So that might be weird, because there have been some speakers who didn't condemn Hamas, and it come across like weak sometimes to the non-Muslim. But I understand their point, because you get trapped in this condemnation blame.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be smart. Like non-Muslims are watching his show, they'll think like, oh, you agree with this, because that's what I would think if I was a non-Muslim, because I understand how I thought. So it's good that he said like, I condemn any killing of innocent civilian who's a non-combatant. That's great. Like there's nothing wrong with that. If that's an IDF soldier, then I don't know. Like that's the line. Like how many of them are IDF soldiers? That's what you're gonna have to. I mean, this is gonna be like results of so much investigation.
But where do you think comes this moral high ground? Like even asking this question perpetuously and time again, and at any news show that you see, it's always the same question: do you condemn the killing of those civilians? Like, where does this moral high ground come from? Why is the question not asked in the other way around? Like, whenever, for example, the Israeli ambassador or any Israeli is interviewed, nobody asks them, would you condemn what the IDF is doing? Never. I've never seen something like that. Where does this moral high ground come from? What do you think?
I think it just comes from the authority, because Israel is like an official state. Palestine is occupied territory. Like Hamas is, elected, but in reality, they are a terrorist group. Like officially by most of the countries, they are like, what's it called? Like titled like that, whatever.
Yeah.
So they are not an official government like Israel, even though Israel is not recognized as well. So by a lot of countries. So it just comes with authority. Like basically, if you have a state and you can have like an authority and you can get international recognition, it's just about that, I think. Just because Palestine is less, let's say,
influential.
Yeah, much less influential. So,
but maybe a thought there would be like, would it be the other way around? If, for example, the Palestinians would be the majority in holding the power in the whole area, and they would have done it to the Israelis, do you think they would have done it in the same way?
Yeah, I mean
it's very hypothetical, right? But
I can't imagine like a Muslim country bombing innocent people. Like it could happen, but at this scale, like I don't know what I think. Yeah, that would be a big problem. Look
how easy this is. If a Muslim country did that, any Muslim would condemn it without hesitation. Like no Muslim would ever say this is okay or we're fine with that. But anyway, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
But babies in the crib. Sorry, what was the evidence for that?
You don't
It's not-
believe that happened?
Sorry, CNN, the White House, Sky News, which you work for, all say.
I don't work for Sky News.
Well, your thing.
I didn't work at CNN. I saw one reporter who retracted it because she wasn't sure about the source.
It's unconfirmed by the White House.
But then the Daily Telegraph and the Jerusalem Post and other sources then did publish pictures, which
CNN
indisputably show babies have been killed.
No, it showed one baby who's been charred, and that picture has been put up on Twitter and has been refuted by many people saying that it's actually AI.
That's completely untrue.
That is true. What's your source?
Mohammed,
what's your source?
There's been a thorough investigation into the claim that was put up there by some rogue person on Twitter that it was AI. It has been completely disproven.
Okay, let me ask you a
picture,
question.
which was published on the Telegraph, is a genuine, legitimate picture.
What is your source?
Are you seriously arguing that babies weren't killed?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, what are you saying?
I'm saying, give me a source.
Yeah.
You know full well you've been fired from the Daily Mirror for fake images. So you know full well about the
I didn't accept they were fake.
Exactly. The UK government did.
Yeah, they did.
Because
the UK government, just to be clear,
sure,
had waged, in my view, an illegal war in Iraq.
So you're allowed to go against the government, and I'm not allowed to go against the Israeli government.
Of course, you're allowed to.
So tell me now, what's the source?
You seem to be making a lot of presumptions about me, Mohammed.
Yes, I was a softball question.
I was the editor.
Ambassador
No, they weren't. I put all the questions to the ambassador. I was editor of the Daily Mirror when we opposed the Iraq war on the grounds that I believed it was an illegal war. Yeah. I still believe that to this day. I think it stained this country.
Fantastic.
I don't think you even knew that.
I did know that.
Right.
But that's not the point I was making. I was making the point that if you're allowed to go against the government in their classification of an image, then if you have pro-Palestinian activists who are saying, actually, we need to see a source, shouldn't they be entitled to that?
The Daily Telegraph published on page 3.
Should they be entitled to that, yes or no?
Talking about, the Daily Telegraph said they had independently verified the picture, Mohammed.
No, excuse me.
If you're saying that their verification is wrong.
No, excuse me. Primary source in academia, I know you've done a journalism degree, which is, frankly, it's not relevant to what we're talking about here anyway.
Probably is to journalism, yeah.
No, it's not to this conflict. But we academics require primary source evidence in order to make it.
The Daily Telegraph said. The Daily Telegraph said they verified the picture.
That's a secondary source.
Fine. You may say
that's secondary source.
You may say
that's a secondary source.
Well, you may say you don't think it's genuine. I don't agree with you. But the wider point.
That was my point. I said I want a source. I just want to see the evidence.
What we're arguing about here. You're not contesting that babies were killed.
No, I'm saying I want to see the evidence.
So why are you picking on the semantics of the veracity of one picture, which has been verified by British journalists? Why are you picking on that?
British journalists
some example of somehow this wasn't as bad as it seemed.
British journalists are not an academic authority. You know that full well. You've been fired from Daily Mirror for that very purpose. What I'm saying to you is this: putting this issue to the side. I think you're trying to use this as a red herring to move away from the bigger issues.
What red herring?
This is a red herring because already.
It's not just a red herring, it's even a straw man included. Like Piers has thrown out all every possible rhetorical weapon that he had, because maybe this fits very good. I've seen a post from, do you know George Galloway?
Yeah, this pro-Palestinian British guy.
Yeah, he's this on the Wikipedia page. He says he's the leader of the Workers' Party of Britain. Just to read out his comment, because this interview is a couple of weeks ago. So the current state is, and George Galloway is somebody I would consider credible. And he says basically on his Twitter page, he said, the foul allegations of rape have been dropped by the Israeli government. The 40 beheaded babies has been downscaled to one dead baby, not beheaded, and killed by persons unknown. 2/3 of Israelis killed on October 7 were military personnel. The killers of the remaining 1/3 are definitely revealed to have been in part the Israeli armed forces themselves. Those with influence who spread the propaganda to the contrary stand exposed as war criminals, and now much blood stains their character forever. It is a spot which will not out. This is basically what he said.
I don't know if I can jump in. Just my...
Yeah, please.
There's just two things, and I'm going to play devil's advocate just so we don't just say everything is great. I think one thing could be better here, because it's been like a 3-minute debate about this babies, and it's like circular. Nobody's getting anything because he's saying what's the source and he's not saying the source. So it's a waste of interview to just stick on this one point to me, because there's no resolving here. You find it like weeks later, and the sources are like biased from both sides. So but what he could say, Mohammed, he could say, why he's asking that, because he didn't really elaborate. Because people who are watching this, not many have background in Israel war. Many people are first time hearing about this conflict. Like, you are different, you're Muslim, but imagine 80% of people are first time hearing about this conflict. So get in their minds, like really stop using your Muslim mind, get inside the mind of like person who's watching it first time, and give them a quick background. Well, I'm asking for the baby whatever evidence, because last time this happened, this was the lie, this was debunked. Give them the evidence so that they can change the perception of that, oh, Israel is the good guy, because that's the perception. You have to change the perception before you go and ask for the evidence, because they are like, why does he keep saying that? So they don't get it. Like, we get it, because you get the background, but if they don't even understand the background of the conflict, you have to explain. I'm asking because over the past 30 years, there have been numerous lies from these government, and there's a track record, 1, 2, 3, 4 examples. So we're gonna have to wait for these babies or whatever, and now we know. So that's just something I would add, because you have to realize this is really for non-Muslims. To contextualize it for everyone, not just think about like people know about this. No, they don't. Many people don't know anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Good point. Let's keep going.
1,023 children have been killed in Gaza. That's why. And you didn't ask the ambassador that question.
I literally asked the ambassador.
No,
I said 3,000 people have already been killed in a week
in
Gaza.
Well, you didn't ask her whether she
even listen to my interview with the ambassador?
I did listen, but excuse me.
Well, don't put words in my mouth or say I didn't ask a question.
Let me ask you a question. Do you condemn the killing of those children by the IDF?
I tell you what I condemn.
Yes or no?
I'm going to answer your question honestly and truthfully.
British
yes
or no?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I think that what happened on October the 7th was one of the worst atrocities I have ever had to read about or watch on.
It happens every day in Palestine. No. So why do you care about that?
It actually doesn't. It doesn't.
It does actually.
No. The Israeli forces.
I've got the stats for that.
Israeli forces do not go.
Cast-led.
Wait a minute, Mohammed.
Edge. Go and check it out.
Mohammed. Israeli forces.
Cast-led protective edge.
Israeli forces don't go into Gaza on one day and grab grandmothers and kill babies in their beds.
Okay.
And
hold on.
Rape and abuse women.
So, rape. Is there any evidence for that?
It's been multiple reports in multiple mainstream media publications. But you can just sit here and deny everything.
No, I'm not denying anything.
You are.
No, I accept that some civilians have been killed. I do accept this, and I already said.
You don't believe any of the reports that women were raped?
No, I didn't say that. I said that it's still to be
do you think they were raped?
No, I don't know. It's like the Russell Brand thing. You said we don't know. We need to see the evidence. So why do you apply two different standards?
Okay, so
when it's Israel, we know they're raped. When it's Russell Brand, you don't know because you're friend.
No, it's been reported by legitimate news sources.
When it's Israel, you know they're raped. But when it's Russell Brand, you don't know.
Them.
When it's Russell Brand, you don't know if they're raped.
There's no comparison between Russell Brand and what's happened.
It's the same thing. It's a rape allegation.
You see, the same legitimate sources or news outlets have reported that Russell Brand was doing this atrocious raping or whatever. So basically, the argument doesn't hold from Piers.
I just think that to be again critical, it's too academic. Mohammed's brain for this debate. He has to dumb it down because he's asking for these primary sources. Like, yeah, that's important, but it's not Piers's level. Like, his level is so low. You have to go down to his level, and don't talk about this stuff because you'll get into these circles. What's the evidence? It's always like that, and it never resolves. I think it can be more powerful if you just keep it low and just accept his premise and just twist it and ask him whatever else. So that's just my thing, because he is an academic and sometimes he's too academic in the debating of like regular guys, which are like, what's he asking? Again, not. I'm not putting down Mohammed. Like, he did a great job, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes this is happening. But yeah, like, overall, he is correct. It's just I'm looking at it all the time as a non-Muslim, who I was before. So that's what my first question is, and I say, what I think.
Yeah, it's a good point. Sometimes we, as Muslims, we forget that a non-Muslim does not have the same perception as we have.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a very good point. We should always do that. Let's keep going. We're just 8 minutes 35 in. There's still many minutes to go. Let's keep going.
Let's do it.
Why stuttering?
I'm not stuttering.
You are stuttering. You don't have anything
You're
to say.
contesting every single thing that I'm saying.
It's a British
and I'm
style.
saying to you at the end.
Oh, by the way, and he still has not condemned the murdering of civilians. I mean, Piers, which Mohammed Hijab did, basically.
He moved to another point, yeah.
1,300 people
Yeah.
were brutally
2,000 people have
murdered,
been killed on the other side.
abused.
2,000 people have been killed on the
I
other
said
side.
that to the ambassador.
Okay, but do you condemn that? Yes or no?
I don't think.
So you refuse to condemn?
No.
You do refuse to
Why are
condemn?
you putting words in my mouth?
Because you're not condemning it, are you?
What do you want me to condemn?
Condemn? Okay,
right.
excellent. What do I want you to condemn?
Yes.
I want you to condemn the fact that the IDF, knowing that it's more probable than not, pressing buttons from the sky, killing innocent civilians, 1,000 of them children, that is a war crime and that is not acceptable morally. Just like you condemn the other one. Is it condemnable?
I believe, given the scale of what Hamas did on October the 7th, Israel is entitled
to kill children.
No, it's not what I said.
Go ahead.
They're entitled to defend themselves with force.
Okay, excellent.
Then the question becomes, Mohammed,
You see, this whole point is very interesting. Maybe this is, I'll try to appeal to the rationality of the people that are watching that are maybe not Muslim. Just imagine yourself living in your apartment or wherever, and there is some criminal in your building hiding in the basement or wherever, right? Basically, if you're saying that it's okay for the IDF to bomb those civilian infrastructure and kill all those civilians, you're basically saying if the same happened to you, you would be fine with it. Your children dying because there is like one guy in the basement hiding their weapons or bombs or whatever. Wayadu billah. So this is basically what people that are defending these atrocities from the IDF, what they're basically saying. They're fine with their own children dying if that happened to them.
Maybe, yeah. But I think most people are just brainwashed. They don't think like that. They are dehumanized Palestinians, so it's like, yeah, they're all terrorists. Kill them. Like, what's the problem here? You know, so that's what people think. But in reality, yeah, what you said is true. But again, this is like a highly sophisticated point, which people will not receive because most people are not intelligent. Like, let's be real. Most people are like, there's like a, you know, there's a like a hierarchy of people. There's like a very small minority of people who lead society in whatever fields and just follows them. The rest just follows them. Like they don't have the capacity to think like this. So it's just unfortunate. This is how the world works. You have to make a better argument. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and I think he made a great point where he gave the background in like, there's a guy pressing a button, killing, like, that's what you should be doing. Because like all Piers is doing, like October 7th, killing babies, you know, just giving you this image. Imagine you're at home. There's a guy, you know, this is what Israel's doing all the time. So you have to do the same. Like, imagine you're a child in Gaza. Suddenly a drone, bomb, you know, let's do this because this is their game. So if we play the blame game, let's play it, you know?
Yeah, that's why I asked the question. Like, if you were a European, let's say you're a British guy and you're living in your in your apartment, and a terrorist would be in your basement somewhere, hiding out, and the UK would just fly a drone over and just bomb the whole building, killing all your neighbors, your family. Basically, would you be fine with that? Obviously, no. Obviously, like, but people, I think you're right. People just don't think this way.
Yeah, they just, because they say, no, all Palestinians are Hamas. That's what, for people to hear this is like, okay, so they're all Hamas. So that's okay then. So you have to say, no, not all people are Hamas. And no, not all people want to kill you. Like you have to get rid of these barriers they have in their head to humanize Palestinians. Unfortunately, that's where we are.
Yeah, unfortunately. Let's keep going.
Interesting debate.
Sure.
If, as it seems to me, you believe too,
Go on.
Hamas are not a force for good. Do you believe that?
Well, I think that anybody who kills children and those elements of Hamas who are killing children.
Right, so we can agree. So we agree. So my point is,
your point.
If Israel's purpose is to rid the world of Hamas after the atrocity of October the 7th, how do they do that, given that Hamas embeds itself in civilian areas in the way that it does? Everyone knows that in Gaza.
Okay.
How do they do that in the surgically clean way that you seem to think they should be doing?
Okay, can I say?
How do you not kill civilians?
Beautiful.
I don't like any civilian death.
Do you mind if I answer?
I don't endorse any civilian death.
Well, no. Don't condemn it though.
Hang on. Yeah. No, and here's why. Because I support Israel's right.
There we go. He said no. He does not condemn it. So we got it finally.
To defend itself.
Beautiful.
Now,
can I say something?
No, one more point. So then you can reply.
Sure.
But the question then becomes, what is proportionate?
Okay.
What is a proportionate response?
Okay.
I don't have the answer.
Excellent.
Because I don't know what a proportionate response to 1,300 murders is. when 260 young people at a music festival, most of them peace-loving people.
You see how he's giving you the image?
When they get
Peace-loving people on a festival.
Like you have to always use the same language because that's what he's doing.
No.
slaughtered by people
Is there any
paragliding
evidence all of them
in
were
with
killed?
machine guns, I don't know what the proportionate response is.
Piers, let me respond.
So can you tell me?
You've spoken for about 2 minutes. You didn't do that with the ambassador, by the way. I'm just showing you. You're saying fair, but you're not being fair.
I've said what I
Okay,
want to say.
so let me paint a
I will be
picture.
fair.
Sure.
I'm genuinely interested in what
Fine.
you have to say.
All right, excellent. You're from Irish descent. We know that there was an IRA
Yes.
in Belfast and so on.
Well, if he was, then he wouldn't have given him only 20 minutes for the interview. He would have given him 40 plus minutes, like he gave to Ben Shapiro, right? Which is also kind of, you can see the bias even in this.
Yeah, because like yeah.
So let me ask you a question now. If there was IRA in Belfast and they were occupying council properties and so on, and then we have a plane of...
Oh, and by the way, important information, Ben Shapiro has not accepted a debate from Mohammed Hijab yet. And he's asking him for a debate for years. Why do you think?
They actually discussed this. He explained why not. Because he cannot debate, he doesn't like to debate like aggressive people. Ben Shapiro, Hijab would be like this in the debate with him, and he's not that style of a debater. He's more like talking to students, making fun of people, that type of stuff. So he cannot handle the type of, that's really what is going on. That's why he will never debate him. So that's never gonna happen. And he's like an officially Zionistic, like he's the leader of Israel in the US, he's never gonna debate Hijab, I think, because that would not be good for him. Like, what can he gain from that? He's gonna lose. So very difficult. I wouldn't, if I was like this evil person, Ben Shapiro, I would not debate Hijab because I would be scared. Yeah.
Of course. I also think that he knows what the consequences would be, and also that he would lose the debate definitely.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why he's not accepting it. But it would still be nice to see him crumble.
He's not just a YouTuber, he's an officially backed by so many official, government institutions and the Daily Wire and all that. So he's not like a Hijab who's like a grassroots guy without much behind him, let's say, in this sense. So this is a different guy. So
yeah.
RAF going to destroy that council property, destroy all of Belfast, flatten it, as one representative said, Gottlieb. The IDF said that, one of the IDF members said that we will flatten it completely. That's what we want to do. We don't care about accuracy, he said. We care about damage. That's what he said. You didn't question her about that. But anyway, if the RAF were to then go into Belfast and flatten, as the IDF and these guys want to do, if they want to flatten Belfast with all the white people, I'm going to use the term white, all the white people, council estates living in there, with the excuse that we're doing it because it's proportionate.
But you see, now he did the thing that you mentioned. Like, he's putting a picture out to the audience, like Belfast and the IRA and so on. This is something that people can relate to in the Western world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Defense to the terrorists. What would you say about that?
Here's what I would say to you.
Is that acceptable or unacceptable?
Here's what I would say to you.
Yeah.
The IRA committed a series of atrocities over numerous decades. They targeted, in their eyes, military and political targets. They usually gave some form of warning, not always.
Okay.
They
were terrorists.
No, they were terrorists.
Sure.
They never, ever went out one day and committed the barbaric slaughter of 1,300...
Irrelevant.
No.
If they did.
I'm sorry. It's not irrelevant.
If they did.
No, Mohammed.
If they did.
Here's why it's not irrelevant. They never did.
But if they did, would you accept the RAF to flatten down Belfast?
There were outrages committed by the loyalist paramilitaries too.
My question is,
here's my point.
If they did, would you think it's acceptable?
They never came close to committing an outrage on that scale.
If they did, is it acceptable?
They never went in and kidnapped grandmothers or killed babies in cribs.
Is it acceptable or not?
They believe they were fighting for better or worse, and I believe for worse, and that's why I'm glad peace was found. They believe they were fighting political and military targets.
I'm trying to bring it closer to home to you.
You're trying to compare apples and oranges.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
It's you that's doing that.
The only comparison that I would say that we saw from October the 7th and what Hamas did is with ISIS.
Excuse me.
It's the only comparison.
Do you mind if let me ask you a question. a Palestinian.
And ISIS were taken
Please
out,
let me
by the way, with
you keep interrupting
planes.
me.
No, here's what.
You didn't do this with the ambassador.
I'm going to finish.
You did this with Ben Shapiro, which you gave the show to him.
No, hang on. I'm giving you
Gave
plenty
him
of time.
No, you're not.
I'm giving you plenty. You asked about the analogy of a plane flying over,
Yeah,
targeting.
but you didn't answer my question.
But that did happen, Mohammed, with ISIS.
Would you accept
To get rid of-
Belfast to be flattened
wait a minute.
or not? Yes
Wait
or no?
a minute. It never happened. So the like for like isn't.
It's, no, it's a
relevant.
hypothesis. It's
No,
hypothetical.
It's not. I don't do hypotheticals.
Oh, you don't do hypotheticals?
No, let's deal with reality.
Okay, let's deal with reality.
Mohammed, let me finish. Then you can
So
answer.
you don't answer the question.
No, here's the reality.
British public can see this.
Here's the reality,
Yeah.
right? Let's
British
just.
public can see this.
Why is he asking a hypothetical question like that? Because it never happened, just as Piers
You
said.
mean hijab or?
Yeah, why is he asking this hypothetical question? Like, if the IRA did what basically the Hamas did, like, what do you think? Is he asking the hypothetical question like this?
Yeah, he's trying to trap him. It's like a debate tactic. You know, you make a hypothetical, and if you have like an answer, then you take it and apply it to a different situation. But that's again, that's his debate in Speaker's Corner and stuff, where you debate like official people. But Piers is not going to fall for that, and he says, "I don't do hypotheticals," and you're done, basically. So it's good, but again, I think it's too high level debating. I think you just have to be like really rude, and like just paint the picture, convey the message of like, hey, this is what Israel is doing. This is the background. And in terms of winning debate, there's no winning with Piers. Like, he's been doing it 50 years, guys, or how, I don't know how much. So he's just going to deflect and move on, deflect, move on. He's never going to answer your question because he's the host. He doesn't answer the questions, you know?
Yeah.
So that's not a debate level where you know, both have, you know, things like that. So I think, you know, it's good to do that, but I just think with these guys, you have to just be prepared to not debate them, but just go there to present the reality and not win an argument, because it's not a debate actually. Yeah.
I think also that he's asking these hypothetical questions just to point out to the public what the stance of Piers Morgan actually is, and to expose potential hypocrisy from his side. I think this is also part of it, and I think this works well because, as everyone can see, he's just not answering the question. Like,
but
he
it's
doesn't
not
want
up to him to answer. Piers Morgan doesn't represent anyone, so I think that's the problem. Like, if you put him on the, like, it's not going to help us at all. Like, Piers Morgan is no one, so why debate him even? You know, he's just a guy. If it was Ben Shapiro, then yeah, that would be hypocritical. But he's presenting himself as non-biased.
Yeah.
Even though he is, but it's not. I kind of agree with him. It's not a show where you debate him. You have to come there with something, and he debates you. It's him being. But again, this is a UK style where you flip it and ask him. You know. Yeah. It's nice.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, they can see it.
Yeah, go on.
They listen to the debate.
Keep going.
Right? For what it's worth, I think it's a good debate to have. Right? These are questions many people on the pro-Palestinian side are having. I get it. Right? But you're trying to compare what happened on October the 7th with the IRA.
No, I'm not.
I'm
hypothetical.
Wait a minute, Mum.
Question.
I'm comparing it to ISIS. And the way that the world in the end dealt with ISIS actually was to use airstrikes. And many civilians were killed.
There's a huge difference.
Many innocent
between the
people
two,
died.
which you're not,
They're not.
You don't understand it because you have no idea of the religious.
What's the difference between what happened on
Exactly.
October the 7th and ISIS?
The difference between the Palestinian resistance is the following.
That's actually a really, really good question. And I think this is actually a good opportunity to explain, but I think it's too complicated.
Yeah, but again, it's like Piers is saying that, like, for us, it doesn't make sense. How can you compare it? But for a Western person who's never heard of this, it makes sense. Like, yeah, they are like ISIS. And Israel keeps saying Hamas is like ISIS. So it's easy for them. Okay, they are like ISIS. So you have to break it. No, this is because they don't have the background. Again, we're dealing with a lack of knowledge. So I think the more time have to be spent on just educating people through these images. Like, imagine you're in the 40s living in Gaza, whatever, in Palestine, and there comes a ship with Jews saying like, oh, please save us. Okay. And then slowly, you know, it starts building settlements
taking
and
over.
And you have to quickly say this somehow because people don't know this at all. They think it just happened, you know, like it didn't happen.
It's
so
like
but that's our job. It's our job. Mainstream media is not going to do it. Piers is not going to do it. we have to educate quickly, like in a minute. You have to give a breakdown. Yeah,
like an
it's very
elevator
difficult.
pitch. Yeah, like
Exactly.
an elevator pitch, something like that. Yeah, it's very difficult because this is a complex issue. I mean, it's not that complex.
Yeah.
There's settlers coming from Europe taking over land. This is basically the short story. But yeah, it needs to be transported in a way that is easy to digest for the viewers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about communication. Yeah.
Okay, any kind of thing which has Palestinian resistance attached to it, and ISIS, which is a brand of tekfirism, okay, is that ISIS is just one of many brands of tekfirism, which you don't know what it is, which is a kind of excommunication type,
exactly.
heresiological Islamic sect. Okay, so if there's
It's
not
nihilistic mass murder. That's all they care about.
listen, I know what you're saying, but I'm saying something.
No,
else.
because
agree with
Palestine
me.
has a right to
I do,
defend
but
itself.
of course,
They have a right to defend the occupier by whatever. I forgot the convention in the 70s, but they agreed on this. So it's not the same. ISIS doesn't have the right. They don't even have a land. They don't have nothing, you know. So it's completely different. But yeah, it's just
the difference
saying
is,
it from this like nihilistic, you know. Yeah, it's just stupid.
it's not just that they have the right from an Islamic perspective, but they also have the right from an international law perspective.
Yeah, that's
This
what I'm
is
saying.
the
Yeah, it's been
difference. And-
agreed. Yeah,
Yeah,
for resistance to even fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ISIS guys, they're complete, like everyone knows this, even Muslims know it. They're complete terrorists, and everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Nobody accepts them. Not the Muslims, and the Westerners won't accept them as well as resistance or some legitimate source of fighters.
Yeah, because they go after Muslims.
You're not understanding what I'm saying, so I'm trying to break it
I
down
am
for you.
understanding what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that anything
And I'm not anti-Palestinian, by the way.
sure, Piers, but
Over the many
you're
years,
not
if
letting
you,
me
bothered,
speak.
if you bothered to check what I said about it,
What you're-
I've always tried to shine a light
Piers, let me
on the
speak.
plight of the Palestinians.
Allow me to speak, please, because you're just talking over me. The difference between the two are the following, right? Even if we assume that the killing of combatants in most definitions of terrorism is something which brings someone to be a terrorist, okay? I would say that if that is the case, then the state of Israel breaks that threshold and meets that condition. Because why is Israel not a state terrorist? If their highest officials are admitting that we want to damage and we want damage and not accuracy, answer me this question. Why is the state of Israel, who are illegally occupying Gaza and the West Bank according to international law, and even the ICJ said that, okay, which is, as you know, an organ of the UN, all right? So this is international law. They're occupying, they're seizing, they're bombarding, they're indiscriminately killing, and they're blocking the supply lines. They're using white phosphorus. They're doing what you call mowing the grass, which is every couple of years, every few years, they're killing the Palestinian people.
Let me ask,
why?
By the way, what Mohammed Hijab here is saying is official statements from the Israeli governments and officials. This is nothing that he made up, like mowing the grass and bombing these places indiscriminately. This is something that the Israeli officials say. This is not something that Muslims perceive and they just give their point of view. It's what they officially say.
I mean, it's even worse, but yeah.
I want to understand what differentiates an Israeli in the sky pressing a button, killing the civilians, from somebody in any terrorist organization shooting the people. What differentiates?
Israel will say it has a right to defend itself.
So will the terrorists?
Right?
That's what Osama bin Laden said.
And they will.
That's exactly Osama bin Laden's argument.
No, it's not though.
Yes,
Hamas,
it is. I read
Hamas
his
aren't-
fatwas.
I read his fatwas. Hamas aren't defending themselves. Bin Laden wasn't defending himself.
Define defense.
Bin Laden was
Well,
trying
how do
to
you define
kill
defense?
as many of the enemy as possible.
Let me ask you a question. How could it be that an occupier is defending itself in the first place? The notion that Israel is defending itself is as absurd as the notion that the rapist is defending itself from the victim. Because Israel is the occupier.
You haven't asked
hold
me.
on, hold on.
Yeah, but
Excuse me, let me finish. Just let me finish. An occupier by international law definition means that they are already in an offensive posture. If they're in an offensive posture, if someone brings you to Piers Morgan, grabs you by the thing, throws you into your bathroom, yeah? You're in your bathroom, you're screaming, and they're eating food, having a good time. One day you come out of your bathroom, you try and fight one of them. Who's defending who from who?
Mohammed,
That's actually that's actually a really, really good point. I think this is a very powerful point. Like, they always keep using this phrase, Israel is defending itself, right? But
yeah,
how
because
can you be
they want to be perceived as victims. That's the thing. So you have to break it and say, like he said, no, like there's this background. So that's a great analysis or a metaphor to say, like, imagine you're here and somebody breaks in. Yeah, like who wouldn't fight back? And of course it's gonna get dirty, but yeah, like who started this thing?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very good point. And I think this was one of the most powerful points in this whole interaction between those two, because it brings the understanding of how can you be defending yourself when you're the perpetrator. It doesn't make any sense. Like
Exactly.
it's just not logical.
Mohammed,
How can you self-defend when you're occupying? Answer me this question.
Let me speak now.
No, but answer the question.
Let me speak.
Answer the question first.
Fine.
He's not gonna answer.
Yeah.
Let me answer.
Yeah.
I believe that Israel's made a number of bad choices.
That's not answering my question.
Wait, I'm telling you what I think.
You don't answer my question.
Telling you what I think.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I don't think Israel's been perfect at all. Right?
You should have had the moral high ground.
I think a lot of the decisions Israel's taken are wrong. I think Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, his attempts to usurp the power of the Supreme Court this year in Israel has been a complete disaster.
Do you condemn them from killing civilians or not?
I do not. I will defend them this week.
Yes or no?
Wait.
Yes or no?
I will defend them this week in defending themselves against one of the worst terror attacks ever.
So you can kill civilians for that?
You can target Hamas.
Can you target? No, hold on.
And if Hamas, the controlling, governing, ruling body in Gaza, hide amongst the public,
this is a false.
members of the public will die.
This you're talking about fallacies. This is called the Moat and Bailey fallacy, which is that you're trying to defend one controversial idea by using another. It's Moat and Bailey fallacy. You can check it up on your own time. The point is this:
it's too academic.
I'm not asking you whether Israel
too academic. But yeah,
too academic.
has a right to defend itself. We've already said of the logical and legal impossibility, of an occupying power according to international law of actually defending itself because it's already. Let me finish. It's already in an offensive posture. Now I'm saying this: if it is the case, you're just saying it's defending itself against Hamas. Is the only way to defend itself against Hamas by dropping bombs in the most densely populated area, one of the most densely populated areas in the world? Is that the only way? It's a false dichotomy. You're creating a false dichotomy. They could do surgery. They can do it. They can go in and they can target.
We're going to take a short break. I'm going to keep you here. I want to finish this. I want to give you the time. I think it's an important debate, an important conversation.
Sure. Well, you have to answer my questions.
I will. We'll come back. Yeah, but actually, you have to answer mine. It's my show, actually.
I can answer
for the record, you can ask me as many questions as you want, but I'll tell you what I think.
I've answered all your questions.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and we're going to finish with a few more minutes, okay? Welcome back.
Want to add anything to the?
Is that the end or?
No, I think it just goes. Let's just look one or two more minutes, and we can just wrap up.
Sure.
So Piers Morgan says, well, Mohammed Hijab is still with me. We've had a lively debate. I knew it would be a lively debate. This is a very important issue. It's a passionate issue. People on both sides. You know, if I tweet about anything, doesn't matter what I say. One side, if I'm even remotely sympathetic to them, the other side, poor abuse and vice versa and so on. Let's try and cut through it all and get to what happens here. How do we find peace in the Middle East? I've been covering Israel-Palestine since I've been a journalist, 3 decades. And it seems to me we're as far away now as we've ever been. How do you think we get to a place of peace? You'll be surprised.
Look, even Hamas, some 4 or 5 years ago, they even agreed to the 1967 lines, the borders. And what you have to understand that this cannot be scapegoated on Hamas, because before Hamas's existence, this was still going on. This was going on before Israel's existence.
But do you believe in a two-state solution?
No, I believe in. Look, even Hamas was proposing a two-state solution.
But do you believe in it?
Look, there's advantages and disadvantages. This is different. I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one.
Could you imagine 2 states next to each other living in peace? Palestine, Israel.
Look, it's a possibility. I mean, as I say, even Hamas was saying that that's a possibility. I mean, this was 4 years ago. But what I want to bring to your attention is that nothing can happen if the international body or the UN becomes a toothless agency. In 2018 to 19, when actually 221 people were killed on a peaceful protest in Gaza. It was called the Great March of Gaza. 220 people died. Hamas didn't shoot a bullet. No rocket was launched. Yeah. So 220 people died, and this is even mentioned by the UN and these kind of agencies. They tried to bring it up, the Palestinian Authority, they tried to bring this up to what we call the ICJ, which is part of the UN. Okay. What happened is the Donald Trump administration, they threatened to freeze the assets of the ICJ, which tells you the following. What are the Palestinian people to do? Because the fact of the matter is, if they try and bring it up...
Let me ask you.
So yeah, basically what he's saying is, it doesn't matter what they do, the other side will never accept. This is basically, it can be peaceful, it can be war, it can be whatever. They're just not going to accept because the Zionist ideology is just constructed in this way. They don't want to give the Palestinians any land. They want to get rid of them as far as possible and as soon as possible. That's the whole idea of this whole conflict between them.
Not just Palestinians, but yeah, that's the start, I guess. But yeah, it's the best solution is some sort of war freeze like South North Korea, just on pause forever. I think that's the best you can get here, because one side will never, like, it's never going to be peace in reality unless somebody wins. So for now, the best case would be to have a freeze conflict like you have in South North Korea, and then a couple of other places where Bosnia, for example, it's sort of a freeze conflict. Like you have like 3 presidents, crazy. The country doesn't work well, but it's relatively safe for the past few years compared to the 90s. So
but it's not working.
The best you can get. It's not working, but you get time. You buy time. That's all you can do. Buy time. So maybe they'll come up with something that's going to buy next 20 years. But eventually this is going to again happen. So I don't know. Look, my overall thing is it's, Muslim countries are not helping anyone. So I don't know how Palestinians can win this. I mean, or what can they do? I have no idea. It's very difficult. They're alone. They're alone. No one's helping them. In reality, they're all just saying stuff, but no one has actually done anything, except I think one plane from Algeria, like yesterday, they sent them like water, some supplies, and that's it. Like, I'm not talking about the Iran and all that, but the Sunni world hasn't done much. So yeah,
I agree.
Difficult.
Maybe one last thing to mention for everyone who probably tunes in at some point in the stream. There is always this scapegoat called Hamas that the Western media and Israel is using. And after this interview, he had an interview with Bassem Youssef, I think is his name. He's a comedian in the US. And he made a really good point. Maybe you guys can watch it. He said, what about a country with Palestinians where there is no Hamas? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's called the West Bank. So why are they killing people in the West Bank if it's all about Hamas? So this shows that this is not the real reason. The real reason is the Zionist ideology behind it. They have a plan.
But that's the thing. Like, it's very difficult to communicate this because, like, how do you explain it quickly? To people who think it's like either a conspiracy or it's like not real. Like, really, they want to do this? Like, what? Yeah.
Have you watched the other interview with the comedian?
Yeah, I watched part 1 and part 2. I really loved Low Key, the British Palestinian rapper. I think he like breaks down everything. He's naming people, who's where, who owns who, and even they sat down like yesterday with Mohammed Hijab. Both of them did a show together.
Oh, really?
Which was great. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So that's like, I think he's like much more plugged in as well, because he's been doing it for 20 years, just covering Palestine, and it's good. It goes much deeper. This rabbit hole. It's so deep, like it kind of goes to like this level of like, wait a second, government agencies, all these things. Like, what, really? And so, if people don't wanna face reality, then they will just say, I don't want to hear about this, and they'll just be ignorant, which is,
It's always like there's 2 sides of every conflict, right? So this is like the most used sentence in conflicts like these. People perceive it as there is 2 opponents fighting each other, but the reality looks different. You would have to read a lot and watch a lot of videos to understand.
But also you would have to then change your ideology. It changes the way who you are, because you have to realize, like, what? Like, wait a second, it's not just this Palestine thing. Okay, that's fine, but it goes deeper. there's not just the Palestine. It goes deeper. What is this about? And then you realize, wait, what happened? And you start connecting. Like, you really go deep. So if you don't want to go there, then you got to stay on the surface. But if you are willing to just read a couple of books, you realize, like, well, there's a timeline of events, and we live in the, like, let's say this current event, but there are so many events that happened here, and you have to go thousands of years back. You can't just go like 10 years back or 20, and just you see it like, oh, okay, and you
go all
understand
the 70, go all
Yeah.
the 70 years back, and then check it out and see what
even
happened.
like even just 100 when it was created, like 1870. What was the first Zionist manifesto? I don't know, something like that. But yeah, you just have to know that. I mean, you don't have to go back to Moses, but you know,
Yeah, it started here actually. I think it was even in Austria with
it's
Theodor
all started
Herzl.
in Austria. You know, even the guy who
Don't
did
mention
this
him. Don't-
is in Austria. So
don't mention him.
it's fascinating. It's everything is done in Austria, like Linz, Graz, Vienna. It's that those places created some interesting people.
That's very diplomatically said.
I'm talking about Mozart, of course.
Of course. Yeah, I know. All right. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you, Jan, for joining me. Maybe we can do another live reaction at another video at some point if you have time. And thank everyone for tuning in. I say
Sure.
assalamu alaikum and goodbye,
Assalamu
everyone.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Have a nice
Bye bye.
evening.